Hi, my name is Anjani Segrist, and today I'm going to be reading the chart for September 16th, 2016, the day of the full moon in the sign of Pisces, and there's also a lunar eclipse on this day. So the first thing I want to talk about is this here is a map of the day of a specific moment that I typed in was 12:05 p.m., which is the time of the full moon. And all these lines here, the red lines would be considered hard aspects, the blue lines would be considered easy aspects in a Western astrology reading. We're going to hold these a little bit different. So all the red lines, I like to call these decide and take action point. So they are creating a sort of friction among two different elements of our self or of the human psyche. This chart is for the collective. So overall, what's sort of in the collective consciousness. So this is a friction happening. And the red line indicating something that we need to change. Otherwise, we end up with like inflammation, arthritis, something like that, that's constantly bothering us unless we make a change. So it's the same thing in the body, doing body work. I notice the same thing in people's bodies and in working on them and, listening to their story and how they talk and the things that cause conflict and friction within their body and within their lives are things that are pointing them to their own liberation, basically. Same thing in this astrology chart. So let's start off by looking at the sun and the moon. They are at a full moon point, they're in opposition to each other. So here we really see a mastery of both of these signs. So Virgo and Pisces, there's a lot going on, a lot more than usual in a full moon. There's always going to be the sun and moon in opposition to each other. But what we have here is the moon conjunct Chiron. Chiron is the fracture point or the wounds. So for this chart, we're looking at the collective consciousness. So the way that we have a fracture or a wound in our nation, in our world, the fracture points, that's going to be highlighted in this full moon and eclipse. So eclipses are basically, the way that I hold an eclipse energy is that it's magnifying. The full moon is already magnifying the energy of whatever's happening in the sky and on the earth at that time. The eclipse magnifies it by, let's say, 100, because it's basically bringing up the shadow and letting us see the shadow, which is exactly what's happening from what I'm interpreting on this chart here. Because down here we have the moon conjunct Chiron. This shows us our wounds. The moon is emotionality, the way that we feel. We're really being asked to feel our own sacred wounds, our own fracture point. This opposition with the sun, Mercury, the North Node, and the Midheaven. Essentially, this whole thing, we can think about it, the sun being what sort of, the thing that I like about the sun in astrology is relating it to that old saying, you do everything the way you do one thing, or the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. The sun sign basically is, the way that I read astrology, is showing us, it's like a sort of overall expression. So here the sun is conjunct to Mercury, and that's opposing the moon and Chiron. So what this looks like to me is bringing up the shadow, bringing up our wounds, and sort of like the elephant in the room. It's an energy that can be felt and noticed by everybody, and we're seeing it in the sky with that big bright moon, and it's up on the surface. I wrote about this recently, and the way that I put it in that writing was that we're basically wearing our sacred wounds right on our face. And the elephant in the room does exist. It's an energy that is tangible. It has a force to it. So what I see us being asked to do is talk about it, write about it, communicate about it. It's going to be affecting the way we work, our contribution to the world. It's going to be affecting everybody differently also, because here's somebody's individual chart. You can see that the moon is over here going right over her sun, which would be activating, everything on her chart basically, and also activating her Mars. And so the moon going over this section of this person's chart is going to activate them individually, different than it might activate you or the next person. So it's really good to have a general idea of the language of astrology and what this language wants to say to you. So overall, from the collective here, it looks like we are going to be wearing those wounds. We need to feel them, be about it, let it, surrender to this energy, because it's very intense energy. You don't want to fight it. You may be feeling tension. I've been having a lot of tension in my jaws. You might have, definitely from what I see here with Neptune, people might be experiencing, where is Neptune? People might be experiencing trouble with sleep, or somehow having the dream time being really affected right now, because Neptune, here we have Neptune in opposition to Mercury and to the North Node, which would say that we are getting extra communication through our dreams, through our, I think of Neptune as the part of us that is like being on psychedelics in a way, or being able to receive that level of information that you experience. I personally am not into psychedelics. There was a meme once that said, I don't do drugs, I am drugs. That's basically what Neptune wants from us, is to be it. It wants us to really embrace that part of us that is imagining our world into existence and dreaming the dream of your life and of our overall experience in consciousness overall. So Neptune being in its position right now, it's also at a square angle to Mars. And Mars is that sort of part of us that is the bravado. It's more assertive, aggressive. And some of the things I've been hearing in other people's astrology readings is that, Mars is going to kick over your dreams, or, a lot of people have this really sort of negative Mars complex. This is the part of ourself. I watched Troy last night. So when I want to really engage my inner Mars, I usually would like to watch a movie that has to do with a warrior-like energy. So it's not all bad, doom and gloom. Mars is a part of our self that is going to protect us. It's going to protect not only us, but it is a protector energy. It's assertive. It is able to assert its will on whatever it's engaging with. So this certain alignment with Mars and Neptune, what I see here is a part of us that is dreaming and having these sort of almost like visionary ideas and concepts, and the epiphany moments that we're having. That's partially Uranus also. That's the same sort of energy. They're both celestial energies. Mars being at this square angle is showing a sort of friction with the part of us that is asserting ourself and the part of us that is dreaming and gentle and visionary. So what I see is that the decide and take action point is where we actually use some of our assertive energy to bring our dreams more forward in our life. Not to necessarily assert our dreams onto others, but to be able to assert our dreams in our own life. So then the next thing with Mars, we have Mars square to the Sun, Mars is square to Mercury, Mars is square to the North Node and the Midheaven, which is also saying, again, that part of us that wants to be willful and make its presence known. The part of us that Mars, as you know, we've looked at it from the aggression and the ambition and the assertion. Let's also now look at it as the part of ourself that is the action, is action oriented. So depending on where Mars is on your chart will tell you more specifically where you are called to action and how that action looks in your life. And it's a little bit different for everybody. What I see here is that we are being called to action. There's a lot of friction happening right now, and this is going to be affecting our work in the world, our contribution to society, career, the way that you relate to that. It's going to be affecting the way we communicate, and it's also going to be affecting our overall radiance. So we are not at the effect of. This is all, the way that I look at this anyhow, is that these are all representing parts of our own psyche, representing parts of our own self. So when I say that Mars is going to be affecting your career, it's like the part of you that is assertive and that has drive and ambition is, it's going to be looking at, are you happy in your career? Is this the way that you want to contribute to the world? If it isn't, this friction is a time for you to decide and take action. You either continue with the friction and create inflammation in your life, or you make a change. And that can be said about every single one of these squares here. So that's going to be a big theme, is our own inner drive and how are we going to meet our own inner ambitions for our life, our vision and our dream for our life, which is represented by Neptune, and our ability to take that out into the world and do an action. How are we asserting that, our own vision and dream, and then how that is in playing with the Sun, which is how we do everything basically, the way we communicate here in Mercury, which we're in a Mercury retrograde time, and also the overall sort of destiny of, since this is a collective, the whole destiny of our collective, and for yourself, what is your own sort of destiny point in your life, and also your midheaven, or the way you're contributing to the world. The next thing here, we have Venus is opposing Uranus at this time also. So here's Venus, here's Uranus, and the way that this looks to me, Venus is in Libra, which is if you think about Venus as a part of yourself that is the receptive feminine energy, and right now she's in the sign of Libra, which is the part of us that wants to relate to other people, wants to have beautiful things and relations. So relating to the rest of humanity. That being opposing Uranus is sort of telling me that there's going to be some we can't describe what's going to happen. We can't even predict, because Uranus is a change agent itself. It is uncertainty. It is wild. It is a free agent. So in this communication that I see with Venus opposing Uranus, I see, us being able to not predict what the feminine essence in us is going to be doing, saying, wanting. We just can't really say what's going to happen, but I feel from this that it's going to be radical. It's going to be either women speaking out, or it's going to be just people in general speaking out about the earth, about the feminine principle itself, which is the receptivity. Venus is very sensual. The part of us that is open to receiving things. And Venus in our culture has been sort of plagiarized, to almost be something that it isn't fully or at all. We don't even, I feel like we don't have healthy relationships to the feminine essence or the masculine. They're both kind of suffering right now. So I say that because I feel like the masculine energy in all of us, it sort of has a name tag, which is like, I am, I play with trucks and I'm loud and I like motorcycles, and it's more, super macho. The truth about the masculine is that it knows that it also isn't part of the feminine. So the healthy form of the masculine would be listening also to its own inner feminine side. And the feminine aspect is really out of balance also, because the women don't believe in themselves. We've been told that these feminine principles are not good. They're dirty, they're evil. Feminine principles meaning intuition, our psychic abilities, our connection to the mysticism. These things have been bad. So we're not fully able to listen to our own inner feminine, and the masculine is, mostly not listening to its inner feminine. And I'm not talking so much about men and women. I did just mention that women have been sort of, that we don't believe in our own strength and our own power, which I feel like that's a true thing. But what I'm talking about here is energetically, feminine and masculine energy. So this is coming up because both Venus and Mars are at hard aspects with, Venus with Uranus and Mars with not only Neptune, but Mars is also aspecting the moon and Chiron. So overall, what I would say about this moment that we're having, really listen to your own emotions and your own feelings. Honor your feelings as sacred. Even if you feel out of control, this is meant to be out of control. This is not meant to be a real pretty thing. Don't get scared. It's not anything to be scared about. It is just bringing a deeper relationship to yourself. If you're able to go into this energy realizing that there's emotional things happening and that you're uncovering parts of yourself for a purpose, and it has to do with your contribution to the world. It has to do with the way that you relate to the feminine aspects of yourself. It has to do with the way that you relate to the masculine aspects of yourself, and the way these energies are asserting themselves out in the world from within you. So just if I could sum this up, all I would really say is that the elephant in the room does exist. So instead of trying to pretend that it doesn't, let's go ahead and converse with the elephant. Let's move the energy, talk about those things, communicate what is really going on for you, and listen also to what's going on to other people. Get in communion, ask these questions. Ask the questions that are meaningful, that you really want to hear the answers from the people or the person that you're talking to. And be ready for change. Be ready for change. That is something that is overall what I'm seeing here, is that there's a lot of call for us to, I almost want to say, like breaking down our old ways, breaking down our old framework for the way that we live, the way that we're dreaming our life into existence, the way that we express ourselves, the way that we're talking, communicating, pretty much everything that I see here. So I didn't mention any of the easy flows that we have, but Pluto's involved in what's considered the easy. Most astrologers wouldn't really talk about Pluto from an easy way, because Pluto is destruction, death, and rebirth, transformation. This is intense energy. Pluto is considered the underworld. So Pluto is our helper this week. Pluto giving an easy flow of energy to the North Node on the midheaven, giving an easy energy to our Mercury retrograde. So the way that we're communicating and expressing in this really, really intense time is being helped, or having an easy flow of energy with Pluto. The other easy energy that we have here is from Uranus to Mars. So, Mars has a lot of tension happening this week and some easy flow with Uranus. So, Uranus being the change agent, we are really being asked to change. So just look in your life. What is causing me inflammation? What is causing me this pain and friction? Look at it. It doesn't mean throw things away or it could mean that. But the way that I see this is really creating an alchemy between those two things. So, alchemy basically means we're bringing the two together and allowing something new to emerge from really looking at the parts of ourselves. So have a wonderful, wonderful full moon, eclipse, eclipse, lunar eclipse. And, if you're into doing any types of ceremonies or things like that, Friday during the day, during the night, during the morning, whenever, sometime on Friday would be a great day for doing any type of ceremonial things, whether it's just setting up an altar, saying some prayer, doing some meditation, burning stuff, candles, incense. I like to burn Epsom salt with alcohol on it, big fire, and I love that. So it's a really good time for that. So thank you so much. Please do respond, make any comments. I would love to interact. I'm in this. This actually was my chart that I was showing before. So this is activating some really, really intense things for me personally. If you would like me to read your chart, I can, I would love to do that. This is a really crucial time to, start to communicate and understand the language of astrology. So you can send me an email. Let's get together. Let's make this happen. So subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I really appreciate you. Have a wonderful Friday the 16th.